Welcome to episode 81 of Crave the Book. In today's episode, Amber and I are covering chapters 14 through 18 of Tracy Wolff Court. And in this episode, Katmere Academy falls to the ground. And we're going to talk a lot about that. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. What is up, guys? Episode 81. We're leaving Katmere Academy today. We're leaving.
Bye-bye.
We're out of there. We are gone. We are doing chapters 14 through 18 of Court. So assuming that you've read those chapters, you know that Katmere kind of like...
It does a fall down.
It quacks. It gets broke.
I'd like to think of it as like it's like standing there proud and true and then just completely turns upside down like
poof.
Dead.
Yeah. So hopefully,
but it's good because I feel like they could probably like go back in, like do a grand design with like a new architect and like make it bigger and better. Like they had some weird ass rooms. The stairs were terrible. And they had dungeons and shit. So
time for a redesign.
Yeah, I would throw the whole thing out and start again.
Maybe that'll be the future of the series is construction at Katmere Academy. We do have two spoilers. Mine is related to charm, kinda. Amber's is related to kind of the end of Court. So, mine's not too bad of a spoiler for charm. You could probably, it's not really going to spoil a whole lot for you. But if you...
No.
Yeah, but if you want to leave when the wolf howl, comes on, especially if you haven't finished Court yet, then yeah, that way nothing gets spoiled. So last we left off, Grace had been sleeping in Hudson's room, but went back up to her own room to sleep, and then was laying in bed because, Katmere Academy is currently all torn up. All the students are gone other than our little group that just got back from the Unkillable Beast Island. And she had been awakened by the voice of the Unkillable Beast in her head, which she met him out in the hallway. He grabbed onto her, or they touched a chess piece at the same time, and they kind of went like...
he touched a chess piece.
Yeah, they like, it was their port key to the... magical gargoyle court land, where Grace learns about her gargoyle army, and she learns that the Unkillable Beast is actually the Gargoyle King and her grandfather. And she learns that she has an army, and she learns that gargoyles can talk telepathic. Like, she learns all this stuff. She gets an emerald ring thingy.
She also learns, like, everywhere else has, like, a beautiful, extravagant, super posh villa for their courts, and she gets like dingy island in the middle of a fog next to the beach. I think it was like near Cork, which is quite what's the word, like near the seaside,
nautical,
marine. So she's like, oh well, I wanted to live in San Diego, but now I've got to live here. She's a little bit disappointed.
Yeah, she had a lot of balls like dropped on her all at once.
She had a lot of balls.
She had a lot of balls today. She had a lot of balls dropped on her all at once. And then basically, when she returns back to Katmere and the Unkillable Beast flies away, wherever he's piecing out to go, she looks at her phone clock and realizes that only like a few minutes have passed. And she felt like she'd been there for a long time. So now she is worrying that maybe Hudson is upset that she's been gone, but she realizes no time at all has passed. And by this time, Luca's parents are already about to arrive to pick up his body.
She gets like a string of texts suddenly, and she's like, oh god, people are panicking that I've left and I've gone, I've disappeared. But it turns out that it's Jackson. in the group chat, like telling everybody to be prepared because Luca's parents were early, which immediately puts them in a suspicion. Like, but then I'm like, oh yeah, but their parents, like, I think eager is the wrong word, but they're eager to see their son.
Yeah, like, let's just get it over with.
Apprehensive? No, what's the word? They want to get to their son.
Yeah.
Them turning up early, and literally she has time to turn around to go to the foyer, and everybody's there.
Yeah.
So she's like, oh, everybody's beat me with their fading powers.
At least she's dressed. Like, she's not still in her, her PJs or anything. She's like ready to go. She's got her backpack.
Yeah. They really notice that Flint is missing. He is not there. And
Poor Flint.
Everybody thinks like he overslept. And Hudson's the only one who's like, dude, he's disabled now. Like, think of all the stairs. Oh, no. I was like, Katmere has got some accessibility issues as well as the design flaws. So I kind of think that a redesign is in order. Bring it up to code.
What if poor Flint's standing at the top of the steps like, guys?
Yeah, like, well, because surely like a vamp would hear it, but I don't think that he ever wanted to ask for help. Like, he's a proud amputee.
Yeah.
And instead of like struggling through it, he transforms into his three-legged dragon and flies through Katmere.
With his crutches.
Which is a really like funny image to see, but at the same time, the reasoning behind it is tragic.
Yeah.
Like, everybody kind of just assumed that he'd be fine to get there. Even if it wasn't from his room, it was from the infirmary or wherever he was. No one thought to go, does Flint need some help?
Yeah. And then when he finally does land and turns back into a human, like, and then he drops his crutches or they're on the ground and he's trying to bend to pick them up without falling. And I think that Grace talks about wishing that, wanting to help him. But I think that if anybody other than Jackson had offered to help, he would have turned them down.
Yeah. But also, it's not your place. Like, if somebody's already helping as well, you don't want to dither over them. Mm-hmm. It's just awkward.
Yeah, because he's clearly embarrassed.
Yeah, he's clearly embarrassed. And you never want to help someone out of pity. You want to help them because you're a decent human being and you know they need help, not because you're like, oh, I feel sorry for them. It's that's a difficult task for them, therefore I will help them with that.
Yeah.
The whole group just made me feel really uncomfortable. The fact that nobody thought of him, and then Grace being all like, oh no, I wish I could help him. Just like, oh, he looks so sad right now. And he's like, yeah, he looks sad, but he's going to be sad. He's going to struggle with everyday things because this is literally 24 hours old for him.
Yeah, he's
still like, I mean, I don't know whether you've ever broken a bone, but like, when you get that cast on and you can't really use that limb for a bit. Like, there's always, like, for example, like doing up your trousers after you've peed, or even going to pee. Like, those, like, difficult tasks every day, and no one's thought, does Flint need some help with this?
Yeah.
And how is it best we ask him whether he needs help with this before he gets embarrassed?
Privately.
Just a little bit of foresight, people.
Or text him. Like, Grace could say, hey, during the Dragon Court, especially if we're talking about the bonus chapters, during the Dragon Court, we had a talk, a private talk, and we have reestablished our friendship. And now, as your friend, I want to know how I can help you. And
what do you need?
Right. What do you need from me? And please do not be afraid to ask for that help. I know that it's embarrassing, but this is what it is.
Yeah.
But, I can understand everybody's stressed and it's easy to let things like that slip your mind. But Flint is alive. Luca's dead. Flint is alive.
And that would be the one person that he knew that he would probably be able to count on. Like, when you go for having a baby and you go through all of those embarrassing stages afterwards where you need to ask your partner for help, especially if after like C-section or whatever, like asking to help you. you have a partner to fall back on, or you have a parent to fall back on. He has no one apart from his just friendship circle, all of which he's kind of angry at because they kind of let Luca die on their watch. Even if he doesn't blame them directly, he's definitely blaming them indirectly. There's a lot of anger there that he is not quite showing.
Yeah.
I think the only person that he's not angry at is Jackson, because Jackson was the only one who wasn't actually capable of saving him, because Jackson gave his life for Flint.
Yeah. I wonder,
Yeah.
does Flint, I mean, I don't think I pay enough attention to notice, but did Tracy write in Flint going through the stages of grief in order?
I don't think so, because I don't think he has any chance to. It goes straight into, like, literally they're on the run, aren't they?
Yeah.
So he doesn't really have to go through those stages of grief, because it's not just grief for Luca, it's also grieving for his leg.
Yeah.
And I think that his leg, because it's a more tangible thing for him to be missing, like, because it's impeding on his everyday activities, I think he places that above Luca in terms of anger and frustration.
Right. Like, sadness lies with Luca. Anger lies with, not only is Luca dead, but I also can't do anything now.
Yeah, everything that I used to be able to. Like, he was a very strong and, like, athletic guy. Like, he loved Luders. He loved to fly. He loved to do things with his body. Like, his snowball fight was specifically to show how energetic he was.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, he's had a quarter of his body removed.
Yeah.
And he can't do the things that he used to do. And I feel like he always kind of feels like he's going to owe it to somebody as well. Like, he's like, well, I may not have a leg, but I would be dead if I didn't lose this leg. But instead of kind of going through those kind of thought processes, he's kind of thrown straight into, okay, you're on the run.
Well, not only that, but when Luca's parents arrive, Flint is able to get his crutches, and then he hobbles up to Luca's parents, and he says something like, I wish we could have saved him. And they said, yeah, we do too. But there was a lot of, like, accusation in their words. It was kind of like, we wish you could have saved him. But that could be taken in, like, we wish our son was still alive versus we wish you would have done more. And I think that it was implied.
You didn't do enough.
Yeah, I think it was very much implied that they did not do enough. And they were very angry and bitter until the order led them into the study hall where they were keeping Luca's body, and then they realized...
Which seemed to be a real point of contention as well. Mm-hmm. Like, the fact that they would dare choose that as the place that they would rest him. And I was like, yeah, like, the problem is that they don't really have many other options. The entire school is destroyed.
Yeah, they seemed really ticked off to hear that he was in a study hall, but then they opened the doors and allowed them to go in, and they had just done it up with candles and flowers and, like, given him a very respectful funeral type display.
When this happened as well, I have no idea.
Well, what about the other members of the order because Grace was asleep for a while, so I bet the other members of the order, spent some time.
Flower picking,
yeah.
They're just destroying the ecosystem of Alaska, just ripping up all the wildflowers.
The Katmere Gardens, that we've heard so much about.
And then whilst the parents are grieving over their son, Maurice comes in. And at this point, I don't think, their name's Miles and something else wasn't it?
Vivian.
They weren't aware of who was in the room, just that somebody had come into the room. And Maurice comes in and says that she's prepared some health drafts for them because she needs to know that they'll be prepared for what's about to happen. And then the parents turn around. I can't remember what the crisis point was when the parents turn around and realize who it was.
I think
they turn around and immediately murder her.
Yeah, I think that the second that they hear her voice and realize because I'm assuming that she was trying to poison them.
Yeah, no, I wrote like health drafts my ass. Like either she was going to put them to sleep so that they would still be there by the time that Cyrus came home, or drain their powers, like, or something. Like she is already probably one of the best like healthcare providers anyway. And then she's also got like access to their trust.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, no, I've prepared you a pill. Like, take this medication. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
And yeah, so Maurice is then told to be colluding with Cyrus, and that the parents of Luca were also with Cyrus until now, which does kind of confirm our theory that they were on Cyrus's side until they realized that they were losing their son.
Yeah. Well,
as part of it,
I'd said like, okay, they were originally on Cyrus's side, but then obviously they kill Maurice and tell the
brutally as well.
Yeah, brutally,
like, not just snap her neck. Like
that was a
rip out.
Rage murder.
Yeah,
and they they come clean and tell them like, we were a part of the plan. We were supposed to be the distraction. But can you imagine your child dies due to this man that you follow religiously, and then being told by that man that, oh, your kid's death is going to be a great opportunity to be a distraction so I can send you in. Like, first of all,
you can get close to them.
Right. Like, as if that is of any importance to them in that moment. And maybe they were so distraught that they were easily manipulated and fine, whatever. But then when they realized, oh, these kids are not our enemy.
Yeah.
It gave them clarity.
Yeah. These kids, even though they are in the middle of a war, have stopped to inform us that Lucas died, because Cyrus doesn't going to tell them.
No.
And also they prepared like this whole room just for him, even though they knew that they had literally hours with him before we took him away. And they also risked telling the parents, even though they knew that it could possibly be a trap.
Yeah, they did the right thing, even though it could have gotten them all captured.
Yeah, catastrophically failed.
Yeah, yeah.
And they also then say, like, you've got to go. Cyrus is coming, and they literally just like pick up the body and like fuck the fuck out.
Yeah, they just vanish.
They just go bye, giving absolutely no time for anybody else to like ask any questions. Like, well, what's his plan? Like, where are the children? Like, they don't get any other information apart from the fact that Cyrus is coming. He's sending. Did they say that he's sending the wolves at that point, or did they not know yet?
I don't think that they knew. They just said that. I think that they just said that Cyrus was like that. They're coming.
Yeah. And as they are preparing to leave, because there's like, oh, go pack a bag. We've got to go pack a bag. Some boy is in the room with them somehow.
Well, we start, and
it's always one of the weirdest scenes as well. Well, just like he's somehow there and got in undetected, no one noticed.
And I noticed, so I took a lot of care in reading this scene because it's easy to go over people's heads, and it's easy to miss, and a lot of people do. And I wanted to identify exactly how Tracy wrote it. So starting out, we're introduced to this character who is described as being brown-skinned with shoulder-length black hair, which the hair part disappeared from me. My first read through, I don't know what I pictured in my head, but I actually like the transition where Tracy does start with saying, it almost, because we're looking at Grace's brain and how Grace is assuming, and Grace starts by saying he, and then Flint,
a boy.
Yeah, and then Flint says maybe he's
just a decoy.
And when it's Dawood, right?
Yeah.
It's wood. I always did wood, like Dawood.
Dawood.
When Dawood says they actually, my only critique, just this is more of a writer's critique, and maybe for those, because I know we have a lot of listeners who also write as well. I think that the issue here is that when we're introducing a non-binary character, because this is a very new development in writing that we've never really experienced before, I really think that, and you guys know that we love Tracy. I think that Tracy should have been just a wee bit more bold so that it's more easily detectable for the reader. If it was in a movie, I think it would have been easier to understand the context. But
yeah, because they probably would look ambiguous anyway.
Right. So saying
it was only Grace's assumption.
Right. So saying they actually.
Yeah. And the problem was the sentence that preceded it also introduced another subject. So it was, what if he's just a decoy and the wolves are like literally imminent? And he goes, and they go, they actually.
Yeah.
So is he talking about the wolves, or are they talking about?
Yeah, because it sounds like it's being used as a way to describe, multiple wolves. They, like,
yes.
It's not one wolf, it's lots of wolves. They are coming.
Yes. And I think that's why it went over so many people's heads.
Yes. So,
it wasn't that they had a closed mind and couldn't ever interpret it as a non-binary person coming out, but it was in fact that the sentence that came before it involved somebody else.
Yes.
So that the correction didn't sound like a correction of the pronouns. It sounded as though he was correcting the quantity of wolves coming.
Right. I dare say that, just for those who are writing, because I'm also going to be adding in a non-binary character into my second book of the channel. And I think that being able to, at just one line of saying, actually, I identify as. Mm-hmm. Adding in,
actually, I'm a them.
Yes, I identify as as them, or yeah. I think that adding in the word identify to signify the identifier is I think that is where the confusion came for a lot of Tracy's readers, because I do see it a lot, and then people are like, what, you've never heard of a non-binary character? No, it's not that. It's not that anybody is being hateful or, being ignorant. It's just that it's a very easy mistake to make, and I know that because when I read it, you
had to go back and read again?
Yeah. Because, I thought that we were talking about the wolves. Like, oh, no, it's a whole pack of wolves. I understand now. But
yeah, it wasn't until a paragraph or an entire page was specifically about Dawood, and they and them was mentioned so many times. I was like, wait, how many people are we talking about here? I'm really confused. And I had to go back and reread, and I'm like, oh, okay, they're non-binary. And then from then on, it made sense. But without that one sentence solidifying in your brain, that's them correcting the pronouns that they wish to be known as.
Yes.
You miss it all.
Yeah.
And you keep reading and you're like, but are they talking about Dawood, or are they talking about a pair of people? Or and that is the problem with that pronoun being specifically difficult, is because once you've already identified somebody as a he, you kind of then go, okay, then that's what they are.
Right. We have to, it's almost, because Grace identified Dawood as he starting out.
You have to rewrite what you've already thought. Whereas if the Dawood came in and the scene introduced them as someone who looked rather neutral and had boyish features but a feminine body, and then when we would have probably put two and two together.
Right.
But because it came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a very obvious correction.
Yeah.
I could have even, literally, face to face with somebody, and I had said that sentence the same as Flint, and the person in front of me goes, they actually, I still wouldn't take that as a correction. I would have taken that as a, oh no, they really mean that we have a lot of wolves coming.
Yeah. So,
and that's not me being like, oh no, non-binary, I don't understand. Okay, like I can't get with this plural, he, they, them. I'm like, no, I'm absolutely fine with it. And I will always correct myself. But at the same time, when you're reading it, it took me a very long time to go back and go, I'm very confused. I'm going to have to reread. Once I got it, I was like, I understand this.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? Tracy is one of the few people who has, we have to think about when we were teenagers, this wasn't a thing. We barely had gay characters in our books. And if we did, they were the gay character. Like, it was a thing. And now, we're able to actually write characters who are relatable, who we can imagine, to know they're not tropes. They're people in our minds. But because, Tracy was probably one of the first, at least mainstream big bookstore authors. I know that there are a lot of them, but Tracy is, she's really gaining traction and popularity. We have to think about how these authors are revolutionizing progress in literature, and, also be patient as authors find a good way to do it. So we're not critiquing Tracy in a way where we say she should have done it this way. It's more of, for future authors, making sure that you're very clear in order to immediately establish who your characters are, what they identify as. That way your readers are able to properly identify them. And also, for all of you readers, making sure that while in the Crave, like Facebook groups and communities, when someone says, I'm confused, not jumping on them bitterly and attacking them for asking a question, as long as they are, not, saying, well, that's stupid. But if they're genuinely saying, I'm confused, why is Dawood being, using they, them? Just be polite when you answer them, because it may not be out of anger or hate. It may just be because they did what we did when they read, and they're like, wait a minute, how many wolves are we talking about? So
yeah, and it actually starts a discussion as well. So even if it is that Tracy wanted, and I am assuming that she wanted to have it very obvious from the get-go, even if that wasn't her intention, it starts a discussion, because people asking questions is always a way of people being like educated.
Yeah.
And in the book that I'm writing, I wanted to introduce a deaf character, because I don't know whether anybody knows that, but my puppy is completely deaf. So living with her and finding about her like quirks of being deaf and the kind of struggles and fun that happens because of it, she's inspired this character I had. And I posted in a deaf and hard of hearing community group asking what people's comments were and requests for how they would wish a deaf character to be portrayed. 90% of the replies were so positive. They were so happy that I was willing to have a deaf heroine it wasn't a quirk. It wasn't a gimmick. It was that she was deaf, and that was it. That was the end of it. There were things that she experienced in the world a little bit differently than everybody else, but she wasn't going to be saved from everything. She wasn't going to survive the apocalypse because she was deaf or whatever. But then there was 10% who said that you should never write a character that you yourself have no experience with.
But that would be
like adamant, like almost like stay the fuck out of our community. And I was like, whoa.
I mean, that would be, that's almost the same as if that were the case, I could never write a book about a male character. I could never write a book about a gay character.
Yeah. So I was like, I'm going to take everybody's comments on board. But at the same time, there were a few comments that were like, I'm on the fence about this. I don't think you can truly portray us effectively or tastefully. However, thank you so much for asking our opinions. So if you are writing a character that is part of a community that you yourself are not part of, just make sure you have what's called a sensitivity writer. So someone that you can kind of bounce ideas off of and ask if something is appropriate or not, because you may assume that it is one way and actually offend a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's just my little take away from this, because I was like to the point of like maybe vetoing my entire character because people were so opposed to it. And it was because I'm guessing they've been marginalized for so long into thinking that they needed to be saved or needed to be helped, and they didn't really understand why I wanted a deaf character. And it was to the point where I was like, well, my dog is deaf and she's inspired so much in my life. She's my best friend. She's the love of my life. And they go, are you comparing us to your dog? And I was like, oh, this is not going how I wanted it to at all. So, yeah, always go into it. If you are writing something like this, if you are writing a non-binary character, ask someone who is non-binary to read it for you.
Yeah.
To let you know.
Yeah.
That it's okay.
And you know, do your research of anything, no matter what you're, you know, writing. Make sure that you do a degree of research. Yeah.
Yes.
I've made it a point to, you know, for example, all of my Black friends have told me that I am so sick of being referred to as chocolate skin and cinnamon skin. And
Yep.
So, and yep. I've always loved that Tracy just writes brown, because all of my Black friends are like, just say brown or tan.
Yep.
Quit calling us chocolate. We're not chocolate.
Yeah. Or describe our hair or something that makes us. Like something else.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily the color of our skin. It's the color, like the clothing that we wear, and the deliverance of speech as well. So if you notice that certain communities, they talk differently because they grew up in a completely different part of town.
Right.
Just have some fun with it rather than just go straight for the boring ways of saying things.
Yeah, and identify everybody's skin color. You know, if they're white, say that they're you know, maybe they're pale, or you know, Jackson. I think Jackson's described as being kind of like alabaster, which we often hear for like vampires who are all, you know,
porcelain.
Yeah, porcelain.
That's the color of my foundation, y'all.
Porcelain beige. I think that's the color of mine too. But
and talking about research, there's one person who is incredibly famous and has an amazingly successful series out there who did absolutely no research on the topic of her books. So if anybody has ever read 50 Shades of Grey, that is an example of how not to research for your books.
Yeah.
Because during one of the interviews, like a Q&As, or like Ask Me Anything, somebody said like, well, did you research any of like the BDSM topics that were covered in your book? And she goes, oh yeah, I asked my husband to blindfold me once. And I was like, that's that's not even close to some of the abuse that you put through in the book.
Yeah, the book was just toxic abuse. The movies were toxic abuse. I mean, I read all of them, and I read them from Christian's perspective as well.
I absolutely binged them.
Yeah, I read them, but I've read way better trash. There's way better trash.
The BDSM community are not happy with the way that they were written, and it wasn't because the messages or the way that it was described was necessarily wrong. It was the fact that they weren't asked.
Yeah.
Like, you tried to literally tell a trilogy from our point of view, and you didn't ask a single person what that was like. You went to Ann Summers and looked at all of the things on the shelves, and you asked your husband to blindfold you and go, yep, trilogy, here it comes.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't do that, guys.
All right. So PSA over.
Yes. So another note about Dawood, and it does start to kind of pick up throughout the book, is that they steal something from the table. Like they just like pick up something and then put it in their pocket, and it's a really like just throwaway sentence.
Yeah.
But reading it back through the second time, I was like, oh, it's so important now.
Yeah. And I don't even think that Tracy wrote what the item was. It was just a something small.
Yeah. And I remember for the first read through, I thought that he was like a proper kleptomaniac. Like he was just like, I'll have that.
Yeah.
And they'll take that. Thank you very much. They have pockets full of things.
Trinkets.
That we don't know what they are.
Yeah.
And then they say that they've got 10 minutes before the wolves arrive.
What immaculate precision and timing, which, there weren't 10 minutes because...
No, not at all.
Like seconds later, 50 wolves? Was it 50? Was it actually 50?
It was 50 approaching them, and then they whirled around, and there were more behind them.
Okay, so over 50 wolves just suddenly appear and jump over the banisters.
I'm like, how did they get in?
They descend.
Not only did Dawood get in unnoticed, and nobody noticed him get through the windows, how destroyed is Katmere? Are there no walls?
Maybe there's...
Could you just walk in?
Maybe maybe they opened portals.
Maybe, but I'm like also like this is a really bleak landscape. It's Alaska. There is no landmarks for hundreds of miles.
Spooky tree.
And how would you not see them sneaking up on the grounds of a school?
I don't know.
and it's like, so not only did Dawood get in unnoticed, but also 50 plus wolves are literally just rounding the corner and jumping over the staircases. So that was fun. And they were like, wow, shit, we're proper surrounded. We can't get out. There is no escape from this.
Yeah. I love that you said, I'll read that in a minute. We'll get onto that. But the Hudson poofing the 50 wolves, though, I mean, really...
And this is the first time that it's actually been like recorded as that's what it's called, is poofing.
And we got a sample of that. The Hudson poofed the wolves.
Yes.
Before Court came out, that was like one of the first teasers that Tracy dropped was he poofed them, Jackson. He just poofed them.
All of the wolves. Like when we first read that, we were like, all of them? Like as in the whole entire faction are gone?
All the wolves?
What?
Yeah. And I mean, just imagine standing there thinking you're about to be eaten and then out of nowhere... I imagine there to be that poof sound that you hear in children's cartoons when something magical poofs, and you hear like if glitter had a sound, it would go like poof, like a shimmering
Meanwhile,
sound.
I'm thinking it's more like somebody's jumped on a vacuum cleaner bag. Just swallowed an ashtray.
Is there any dust? Is it like
This falls to ashes, don't they?
Like the scene at the Ministry of Magic when all the glass turns into like dust and just kind of like shh.
You haven't watched any of the Marvel movies, have you?
No, we don't watch Marvel movies. I refuse.
Yeah. There's the thing called the snap, where half of the population of the universe just ceases to exist, and they all just kind of scatter like dust. They turn into like this ashy sand stuff.
I've seen the memes. I've seen the...
Yeah, and everybody like disappears before they've even got a sentence out, apart from Tom Holland as Spider-Man, who manages to get out an entire sentence somehow. But just imagining one of the wolves just lasting a little bit longer than the rest, like, but I was so close.
Oh, wait! And then he explodes.
Yeah. It's like... I'm wondering whether like do they all go in the same time? Is it like a Mexican wave?
A what?
Like do you know what a Mexican wave is?
No.
Oh, that sounds super racist now.
It does. That's why I said what.
So you know when you're in like a crowd for like a football stadium?
Uh-huh.
Like a whole crowd.
Yeah.
And then like everybody kind of stands up and then sits back down with their arms in the air.
We just call that the wave.
The wave? Oh, no, Mexican flag is much better, but I don't know why it's Mexican. But yeah, we call it the Mexican flag.
No,
Mexican wave.
Maybe, did it originate in Mexico? Maybe.
I don't know.
What's the sport they played? There was like some ancient sport I remember learning
Flag
about,
waving.
No, there was some, but they would fill, like their little stadiums, and maybe that, I don't know.
I don't know, but yeah, that's what I was like. Maybe was it like a ripple, like a wave, like it starts at the closest one and then moves further back. Like, how does he concentrate? Can he do all at once, or does he have to go like, oh, okay, all the girls first?
All the girls first.
This is basically like a massive game of Guess Who. If you don't like the color blue,
if you've got blue eyes, step forward.
poof.
I'm assuming that they all just poof at once, all at the exact same time, like a fart. Just, I mean, that would be funny, as if it made like a little poot sound, like a little fart.
Toot.
Toot. Poof. But then they find out that there are more wolves coming.
Yep.
Which
And like literally like hundreds and hundreds of them. And I am always imagined that this scene is like the Lord of the Rings, with like the swarms cresting the hill.
Yeah.
just like that like feeling of, even though you know that they're the same sort of size as you, but because they are from a distance and they're so closely packed together, it looks like a swarm of insects and makes you really uncomfortable.
I'm picturing it like
that whole like crawling, creepily like swarm of scuttly things.
Yeah, I mean, they're bigger though, aren't they? Aren't the wolves?
No idea. She's never described one as an actual wolf.
Oh man, I've pictured them bigger. Maybe it's just because Twilight and From Blood and Ash has my perception of wolves bigger.
Yeah, like if you think about it, with the first scene in Crave, she didn't know that they were werewolves.
Yeah.
Then with all the fight scenes between Jackson and Cole, at no point was he a wolf. It wasn't until like the Luders tournament.
Yeah, and even
when
Xavier
they were, like, wolves.
wasn't really ever in wolf form.
No, and she doesn't really ever describe them as like gigantic wolves, like 3 times the size of me. It was all just in their wolf form, and that was it.
Yeah.
She doesn't even say whether they are like different colors. You know how like in like Seth and Jacob and Sam, they all had their own like distinct colorings.
Yeah.
Like, apparently, like I don't think that she's ever described them as having their own like coat color.
Yeah, even in From Blood and Ash, all the wolves have their own distinct color. I don't know. Maybe she just doesn't see anybody in wolf forms. And to be fair, she doesn't really have any other wolf friends other than Dawood now. But,
She's not a wolf racist.
Yeah, she really doesn't. Well, the wolves are all kind of mean to her. So they really haven't had any nice wolves that we've met in the story other than Xavier. Like,
yeah.
He's kind of the only one.
And even Dawood, we're like,
yeah, we're unsure right now.
Yeah. So anyway, everybody kind of decides that Hudson and Jackson should fight the wolves whilst everybody else skedaddles to the witch court to go and see Macy's aunt. And there's this scene where like Grace is arguing and saying like, no, I don't want to leave you. Like, I shouldn't leave my mate. Like, we always fight better together. Like, we should never be apart. And Hudson's like, I literally can't think when you're next to me. And if you stay here, I will have no option but to poof all of them. And I think she kind of finally gets it, that he's not holding back for her sake. If anything, like her being there makes him take the nuclear option rather than actually save their lives. So she starts to leave, and Jackson goes, the Order will protect her with her lives. And then just this like weird gang sign.
Yeah, they're like,
just like thump thump on the chest.
When do they do
like,
that?
Peace out.
They've never done that before. Like,
no. Yeah, and I was like, wow, like Jackson's getting all ghetto for some reason. It's like, peace out. I'm just like, that's weird. Everybody else kind of joins in with this weird order sign.
Yeah, they all just know to do it. I saw it more of like a, holding the sword against the chest, like, we're at the ready, sir. Give us your orders.
So no, I saw either gang sign or I'm a gorilla.
ooh, like beating on the chest.
like thump the chest, like do. I am Tarzan. Make me roar. And yeah, I was like, this is really weird. Where did this come from? Yeah, that was just really, really strange. And I don't think they ever do it again.
No. So everybody is jumping through the portal that Macy has made, and Jackson and Hudson stay back. They're inside Katmere, and right before Grace gets shoved through the portal, she starts to see that Katmere is literally falling. Like, they have decided that the best way to get rid of this wolf problem is to just collapse the building. And honestly, thinking about the school falling and, like, you know, this place that you've gotten familiar with and you've kind of enjoyed some of its quirks reading the series, I think that it's sadder hearing about this building being destroyed than, you know, most other character deaths that we've had so far in the series. I'm more upset about the school.
I think also, like, people have the opportunity. They have the opportunity to die. They have the potential to die. Like, everybody who goes in, even if they're like, I'm immortal, they still have that risk of death. Whereas a building, you feel like, is a bit more permanent, especially as it's been there since the beginning of the beginning.
Right. It's a safe place. It's the place that they've established safety, and now it's no longer safe.
Yeah, like, Grace has no home.
Yeah.
Like, Hudson, like, and Jackson could always go back to London if they wanted to. Macy probably has family. She could go see their aunt in the thing. But, like, Grace is like, as much as I have just had that experience that I've still not told anybody about yet, by the way, I have no court. I have no home to back up with. So she's lost her home. Everybody else could kind of fall back on their courts and go back to there and say, like, I need a house. They're also all rich as shit. Meanwhile, she only has shares from Google, which is not actually spent yet.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, hasn't Macy lived there forever? Like, didn't she talk about having her tunnels when she was like little? So
yes.
But you're right, she does have other family, so
yeah.
Yeah.
And where's Grace would probably have to be a tag along, and nobody wants to be the tag along.
Yeah, the baggage.
You don't mind counter surfing on your own, but you never want to be a +1 sofa surfer.
Yeah.
Like, can you imagine, like, your friend turning up at your door and it's like, hi, like, is there any chance I could stay? Like, I've got nowhere else to go. You would absolutely give them a bed, right? But if their friend who you've never met also went, can I have a bed?
Can I stay
like,
too?
the fuck are you?
Yeah. All right.
My generosity only stretches so far.
Yeah. Especially since the kids are, like, wanted.
Yeah.
All right. Let's get into spoilers. You have one and I have one, and mine kind of has charm stuff. So you do yours first, because yours is just court.
Yes. So everybody who's read to the end of Court knows that Liam is kind of set up to be this person who's betrayed them all. And throughout, we've always been a bit dubious as to whether he did actually betray them. But there's this scene that I'm like, oh, actually he's showing a bit of suspicious activity. And it's when Hudson proofs the wolves, Liam is the most surprised. Like, he is the one that's like, no, you can't do that. You've not been able to do that. As if he's like, oh shit, we're fucked. Not, oh good, we're saved. Hudson just saved us. It was more of a, number one, you've just destroyed everybody that was coming to you, kind of rescue me from all this. Or I've now got to tell Cyrus that you're capable of doing the thing that we believed to not be true.
Yeah, that he's been hiding all these years.
Yeah. Because he was like, well, yeah, like, of course I could. I've destroyed the stadium. And Liam's like, yeah, but that's one thing. A stadium is one thing. But people, we didn't realize you could do people.
Yeah.
And it was a really weird statement. And it was the fact that only Liam was surprised by it, as in, like, enough to challenge it. Everybody else was just kind of relieved that they were saved and didn't question it. It wasn't like, but where did they go? Or, but what did that cost you? Are you all right? Like, because Hudson seems to be struggling with it. Like, he gets down on his knees. But yeah, Liam's the only one who seems to be genuinely, like, concerned that Hudson has that ability.
Yeah, and then he brings it up to Jackson.
He definitely,
He says he poofed. He says it to Jackson. He poofed the wolves, Jackson.
Yeah.
Which Jackson would be the only other person who has any ties to Hudson on a level where he might be looking to Jackson like, can you believe this?
Yeah. Which is really, it is also really bizarre because not 24 hours earlier, Hudson was literally saving their life by poofing rocks and stuff like that on the battlefield. And it really did make me think, like, everybody else wouldn't have ever assumed that Hudson couldn't do things.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Liam being concerned that he could do people as well directly after the battle that is 24 hours ago. Like, instead of being like, you could have done that earlier, you could have done that yesterday in the battle and saved everybody, you didn't. That would have been a normal response. But the way he says it is almost like oh crap, we're fucked.
All right. So,
and I need to tell Cyrus.
1+1 naughty boy point for Liam.
Yep. I've got a scoreboard coming.
Yep.
We're going to have, like, little sad wolves and happy wolves. No, not wolves. Vampires. We should get vampires, not wolves, because Liam is a vampire. And at the end, he gets to go in a little coffin if he's bad, because he's dead. Or he gets to go to little vampy heaven, because he was falsely accused. Don't we have
stickers in our...
Stickers.
There we go.
Oh, no, he looks so ashamed.
We've got our note board that Amber and I share. If we update things, they update for the other person in real time. And we've got little stickers, but I've got a little sad husky with its paw over its face. Perfect. So my note is related to the exact same scene, but something a little different. And it does have a slight charm spoiler. So my thought is that, because Hudson doesn't accept, like, love or comfort from Grace after this. He is very distraught after killing all of these wolves. And I said
but she handles it well.
He does, but we also...
She says, "What? Like, tell me, how can I help?" And he actually, like, tells her how she can help, which is really good.
Yeah.
Whereas before, their fights were just stupid and pointless.
It does get worse, though, throughout the book where he shuts her out.
Yes.
So knowing that, I said that he probably feels like he's lost this battle of control where he's had this restraint on his power for so long. And then he went through everything that happened with the Shadow Realm and, even the things, losing Smokey, all of his time at Katmere, nearly losing Grace. And he has not once resorted to using this particular world-ending, devastating power. But then when Grace was threatened, he did not even think. He did not wait. The second that he thought that she was threatened, he just snapped on impulse and killed all of those wolves.
Yeah.
So I think that he is feeling like my control has slipped. And what if my control...
He's off the wagon.
What if I lose myself to this, which is exactly what Cyrus was kind of trying to do to him.
Yeah.
So,
Well, what concerns me is that Hudson has another power and he never uses it. Like, why does it have to go straight to poofing? Why couldn't he say freeze, turn around, go back home? Any command using his persuasion power.
maybe there's just not enough time. I think that persuasion, I don't think it's just like you command and they do. I think it's more.
But he never uses it.
You're right. He really doesn't.
He goes straight to the poofing, and if it really like hurts him that much, because during court he says that he takes their soul at the same time as he poofs them. If it really hurts him that much, if that is what costs him that, why isn't he at least trying to use his other power as a buffer before he has to go crazy?
Yeah,
but he doesn't.
I don't know.
Like he says that he's not done that. Like, I mean, I think the only example that we have of him using it was with the guards in the Dragon Tower.
Guards in the Dragon Tower.
Yeah, Grace thinks he's imprisoned, and having a whole conversation with Nuri about how to get him out.
And they're playing ball.
And then she goes down, and the guard's playing ball. And I'm like, that's the only time that he's used it. And yeah, that was absolutely like nothing bad happened.
Yeah, the stakes were very low and he would have gotten out anyway.
Mm-hmm. But how many other times would that power have been useful but not world-ending?
Yeah.
And he just doesn't use it.
I mean, not at any point during the prison because his powers weren't working.
But it makes me think that he has this hatred of his powers that he's not willing to kind of stretch them like a muscle.
And see the good in them.
Yeah. Or just saying like, Grace, like you tell me when I need to use it. And she could have at least gone like, oh, you should have told them to go. Like, at no point did she go like, what about your other powers? Nobody reminds him like, what about your powers of persuasion? Like, he could have absolutely turned around to the witches' court because they get kicked out, don't they?
Yeah.
They say like, no, we don't want you here. At no point does he use it then. I don't understand. Like, maybe he doesn't have that power anymore.
Yeah.
Maybe it's gone.
It's gone. I don't know if he uses it at all during this book. We'll have to keep our eyes out for it and see if he actually uses it at any point. But I don't think that he does.
No, and he doesn't use it during Charm either because he doesn't have any of his powers. He has his vampire.
He uses it with in the library to get Amka to unlock the thingy.
Yes.
And to take over Grace's body. That was technically his power of persuasion, he says, when he took over her body and was like walking about the school. That was supposed to be part of it.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, at no point does it become either like a little bit of a joke either. Like, if they're like actually persuading somebody to use, like, to do something. Because I do that every day. Like, oh, come on. You want to. Please, you want to. Please, 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 please. At no point does anybody ever accuse him of using his power, even if he hasn't.
Right. Like,
and yet that was the one thing that they were terrified of letting him out to be free from Grace's body. They were terrified of letting him out because of that one power.
Yeah, because...
And he's not used it.
They said that he could make he could make you kill people you love and things. He's never done any of that.
He hasn't even tried to get a free, like, meal.
A free happy meal.
Like, he's not tried to do anything with it. I mean, I would be using that power all the goddamn time. It's like, oh, an extension on this essay? Please? Thank you.
Thank you.
Like, are you sure you don't want to just give me an A? Thank you. Yeah.
All right. Well, guys, thanks so much for listening. Hopefully we can try to, and I know that we keep posing more and more like new questions, and reading through this book, this is only the second time that Amber and I have both read through it. So I'm having a lot of fun actually starting to find these little clues and hints. And I'm hoping that we can kind of stack onto a lot of the theories that you guys have brought up with us as well. But Thanks so much for listening, and we will see you next week.
Bye.